Morning. Hello, Grug. How you doing, Grug? I've been live streaming for 115 days, you hear me? No, 116 days to be exact. Back to back, man. I'm live streaming every day till I reach my goal, man. Direct hit. Here is another angle of this insane scene. This, once it detonates, is impossible to even try to shoot down. And the Israelis don't really know how many of these the Iranians have. Could be one, could be 1,000. This right here is the scene in Tel Aviv after just one of those 80 fell on. Leaders in Brussels. And this means a credible transition for Iran, while the head of the EU criticized US and Israeli airstrikes as violating international law. But Paris is allowing the US military to use a base in southern France for logistics operations. Portugal, Greece, and Italy have also offered the US their bases for support purposes only. Once again, the European Union is being shaken by a war beyond its borders and failing to come up with a common response. But despite their differences, there is one thing the European governments do agree on, and that is that they don't want their countries to be drawn directly into this conflict. Most opinion polls in Europe suggest entering the war would be unpopular with the public. The drone strike on a UK base in Cyprus on Tuesday heightened anxiety. Several European countries, including France, are now sending ships and defensive equipment to the region, conscious that a war that most Europeans don't want is coming increasingly close to home. Natasha Butler, Al Jazeera, Paris. British police have arrested 4 men accused of spying for Iran. One of the men has Iranian citizenship. 3 others are dual Iranian-British citizens. Officers say they were surveilling Jewish sites and people. Al Jazeera's Camille Nedalek reports from London. As well as those 4 men arrested under suspicion of spying, a further 6 have been arrested under suspicion of aiding a suspect. Police searches are ongoing at a number of properties in and around London with links to those men. And this operation is a long-term pre-planned. Gyrations. What's your take on this? What'd you say? You said gyrations. That's exactly. Yeah, and thanks so much for having me on, Don. Let's start with the jobs report because here in our state of Florida, we are one of the most heavily reliant states on the Affordable Care Act. These cuts that Republicans have made to the Affordable Care Act and to Medicaid in the One Big Beautiful Bill last year. Florida is one of the most reliant states on the ACA. Our small businesses, they are increasingly reliant on these programs, the subsidies for healthcare. And so we're really suffering here. We're on the front lines of the economic and affordability crisis. There was a poll from Florida Atlantic University last fall, which is in our district, that reported that over 50% of Floridians are considering leaving the state. And when you think about the chaos that's going on right now, it's Iran, but it's also in Cuba and Venezuela. And Florida is one of the most heavily impacted with our population of TPS recipients from Haiti, from Venezuela, that this administration has seen.
Good morning, good morning. How y'all doing? Blessings. Double tap for the like. Hope y'all have a blessed day today.
Christy Nome have tried to invalidate those legal protections, but it will at least put a marker in the ground ahead of 2028 when we need to win back the White House, because then we will have finally some measure of accountability for the just immense amounts of lawbreaking that are going on. And it's by design that it's happening so fast in so many different areas in so many different directions that it's hard to keep up with. But there has to be accountability, and taking back the House in November has got to be the first step for Democrats to start to call all this back.
Before Sakat jumps in, I just want to ask you if you are paying attention, because Florida, everyone pays attention to Florida and Texas. Are they going to turn blue? Are they going to turn blue? You see what's happening in Texas. Are you paying close attention to Texas, and does that give you some sort of hope, or any? Is there any? Can you learn from anything that has happened in Texas with the primary?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what we just saw in Texas was Democrats actually outvoting Republicans for the first time in nearly a generation. And this comports with what we've seen. I was actually knocking on doors the last several weekends of the Miami mayoral runoff election to elect the first woman mayor in Miami's history, Eileen Higgins. The swings that we've seen in elections, it is not just restricted to South Florida. It happened in the special elections last April in Escambia County, where Gay Valamont ran to replace Matt Gaetz. We flipped Escambia County for the first time again in a generation. Randy Fine's seat, that was a much, much closer race than Republicans were anticipating, and they were really sweating it at the very end. And so what I think we're seeing, and what is potentially the case in a state like Texas, is Republicans have gotten so extreme with their partisan gerrymandering, it could end up being a dummy mander if there's the Democratic enthusiasm and turnout that we saw that was indicated in the primary elections on Tuesday. We could actually see Democrats with the opportunity to take back the House, and Republicans' efforts to just continue to suppress votes may turn out to bite them in the behind, because we've knocked on 5,000 doors here in our district since November. And what we're hearing, people are volunteering to our volunteers words like authoritarianism, fascism, dictatorship, Gestapo when they're talking about ICE, and all of it is overarched with the cost of living and the affordability crisis. That when we see more and more of our taxpayer dollars going to fund wars of choice and endless forever wars, regime change, they're not going towards the affordability crisis. They're not going towards investing in good paying jobs. And we just saw that catastrophic jobs report from February with 92,000 jobs lost. So I think it's coming together. I hate that we had to touch the hot stove in 2024 to have Trump back in place in the White House. But I think people are waking up and they're really suffering in this economy, and they're seeing the elite impunity and just the lack of accountability for anything that the Trump administration is doing.
So, Sycat, listen, you know that this is going to be very important, and I'm sure you're paying close attention to the job numbers and the economic numbers overall, because California has the world's fourth largest economy, the GDP of approximately $4.3 trillion, and that trails only to the United States, China, Germany, and then recently surpassing Japan. This is an important seat that the Democrats have to keep here, but they also need momentum around the country. November 2026 is very important for the health of Americans and the health of our country and our democracy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what you've seen with Donald Trump is that he got elected saying he's going to completely change the economy, right? Because people are suffering from a cost of living crisis. He's going to end corruption, and he's going to get us out of all of our wars. And after coming in, he's completely failed the economy. He's gotten us into wars, and this is by far the most corrupt administration in the history of our country. So what's really going to matter in November or in 2026 is, yes, we have to take back the House. I think to have a vision that's not just going back to a pre-Trump status quo, because that wasn't working. We actually have to have a vision for fixing those problems that led to Trump. And it's got to be a real transformative vision of a new economy that really does, change, fix the cost of living crisis and get us out of all these wars. I will say, I mean, this war in Iran is a total quagmire. That's the right word to use for it. We've seen this before. We saw it in Iraq. We saw it in Afghanistan. We saw it in Libya. And I was sort of disappointed to see that when we had the War Powers Resolution vote just yesterday, you had 4 Democrats cross over to vote against that War Powers Resolution, right? So it's going to matter that we not just win back the House, but we have a Democratic Party that's willing to fight to get us out of these wars, that's willing to fight to actually create an affordable life, and that roots out corruption and totally, holds this Epstein class accountable and prosecutes them.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that you said there were 4 Democrats, right, that crossed over? I was surprised by that as well.
Well, whenever there's 4 Democrats, if you look at the 219 and 212, right? So those 4 Democrats actually gave that vote. That's usually a sign that there's more than 4 Democrats. And part of that is because there is a part of the Democratic Party right now that is for these wars. That's for U.S. intervention abroad, and it's unfortunately just part of the party. I mean, we saw this back in November when the government passed a $900 billion defense budget right before Trump went into Venezuela. He had 115 Democrats vote for that defense budget, right? There's been a bipartisan consensus for this kind of foreign policy for a long time in DC, and we have to completely change it. That's going to require replacing pretty much the entire Republican Party as it is, but also a lot of the current Democratic establishment as well.
I want to talk about Kristi Noem. I want to talk more about the Epstein files. First, I'm going to get a word in from our sponsors. We're back with our guests in 2 minutes. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Now, it's almost International Women's Day, and it's a moment to celebrate the strength and the resilience of women everywhere. But it's also a reminder of just how much women carry every single day. Now, I always think about my mom when this time of year comes around. She's been the steady force, the center of our family for my whole life, working hard, showing up for everyone, encouraging us, reminding us who we are when we forget. But even the strongest people need space to take care of themselves. And that's where therapy can help. A place to process what you're carrying, set boundaries, and talk through life with someone who is there just for you. BetterHelp makes therapy more accessible. Their therapists are fully licensed, and they match you with someone based on your needs through a simple questionnaire. So if it's not the right fit, you can switch anytime. With more than 30,000 therapists and over 5 million people served, BetterHelp is one of the largest therapy platforms in the world. So find support and feel lighter. Go to betterhelp.com/DonLemon for 10% off of your first month. Support comes from Shopify. Now let me paint a picture for you. It's late at night. You're scrolling through your phone, see something that you really been wanting, and you click the link. You add it to your cart, and you're ready to check out. Then you realize that your card isn't anywhere near you, but then you see it. that Shop Pay button that already has your information saved, and checkout takes just a tap. So that's Shopify working in the background for you. Shopify powers millions of businesses around the world and about 10% of all e-commerce in the United States, from major brands to people just starting their first online shop. And I got to tell you, here at the Don Lemon Show, we use Shopify for our very own merch. They make it easy with easy to use store templates, built-in AI tools for writing product descriptions and headlines, and tools that help you run email and social media campaigns. Plus, they handle the complicated stuff like payments, shipping, and returns. So if you're ready to sell, you are ready for Shopify. Start your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/lemon. Shopify.com/lemon. Thanks to our sponsors. Of course, thank you to our sponsors that keep us viable out here on these streaming streets. We love you, sponsors. Thank you for supporting independent journalism. Okay, so look, I want to talk about Kristi Noem. This is what I believe. Okay, I think that Donald Trump is obviously living in a bubble. He doesn't understand what's happening in America. But originally, he was very good at sort of gaming what was in the zeitgeist, so capitalizing on people's emotions and feelings rather than facts. And I don't think he understands the facts now that he is deeply unpopular. His policies are unpopular. People don't like the people he has appointed to his administration, especially Pete Hegseth, Pam Bondi, and Kristi Noem, who was fired yesterday, or demoted, but basically fired, put out to pasture, so to speak. And so this is a polling numbers. This is my friend and former colleague over at CNN, Harry Inton, talking about Kristi Noem's popularity or lack of popularity. Here it is. The American people wanted her fired. They wanted her removed. She was a political nightmare for the president of the United States. I mean, just take a look at this. Wanted Noem removed as DHS secretary. Overall, last month, Quinnipiac University found the majority of Americans, 58%, wanted her to be adios amigos, goodbye, see you later. Among independents, you can see it right here, 62% of independents, we're talking more than 3 in 5 independents, wanted her kicked to the curb. So Donald Trump here making the politically popular move because Americans were simply put sick of Kristi Noem. And this was well before this testimony that was so controversial. How about her approval rating? How has that tracked? Yeah, how is that tracked? Look, the idea that Kristi Noem is unpopular is not a new phenomenon. It's one that is dated all the way back to the beginning of Trump's second term. I mean, just take a look here. Okay, Kristi Noem's net popularity rating during Donald Trump's term, positive in none, zero, nada. None of the polls did she have a positive net approval rating. In all the polls, she was underwater, swimming in the deep blue sea. She had a negative net popularity rating in every single poll conducted during Donald Trump's second term. Simply put, Americans did not like the job that she was doing as DHS secretary. And recently, the clear majority of Americans, about 3 to 5, wanted her kicked to the curb, fired, as I said, by Donald Trump. So again, Trump doing what the American people wanted him to do. If Donald Trump wants his poll numbers to improve, he's going to have to do a lot of things. One is he's got to end this quagmire, right? 2 is he's got to get rid of some people. And I believe he's got to get rid of Pam Bondi and Pete Hegseth and some others, probably Kash Patel. He's got to clean house and start over again. And I don't know if that's possible and if that will actually even make a difference moving into November, considering we all seen the pictures. I've witnessed it. The people who come, being dragged off of the streets, pulled by their hair and, their backs of their coats, and people who have been arrested and detained who are American citizens who don't have criminal records. That's hard to overcome. That opposition ad writes itself in November.
Certainly it does. But here's the thing about his popularity. Because he's not running for office, no matter what he says, less the reason his poll numbers change is because gas prices start coming down, unemployment corrects, economic situations change. It's not going to matter for November. The Democrats right now are in a position where we can only mess ourselves up by not putting forward the right story and the right messaging for people to go out to the polls. Because even as upset as they are about Kristi Noem, and as it says they're going to be about Mullen, who is not going to be any better, that situation in and of itself is not going to be the driver for the polls. What's going to be the driver is they want a whole different Congress that is not a lackey to this president's whims. And they want their own personal situations, their kitchen counter issues to change. And I think one of the messages they refused to believe going into this election, they might now understand, oh, it actually was better. How do we know it was better? Because things are so much worse. Like everything that he said was terrible was not terrible. And the minute that the true corrective came in and people could start feeling the better that the world knew about the United States economy, he started tanking it. So it's going to be up to the bulk of us, people who care about democracy, to bring people off of their couches and into those voting booths. And God help us, we got to make sure we have voting booths to go to.
Yeah. Monique, thank you very much. I appreciate it. We'll see you soon. Thank you. Thank you for analyzing. Oliver, do you agree with what Monique said? I gave you my remedy for Donald Trump if there is one. Don't trust me. I'm not giving them advice. I'm just analyzing here because I think Donald Trump needs to be out of office. He should never have been elected president. But Oliver, do you agree with what the and then what again takes us forward to November?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one reason that Kristi Noem has been so unpopular is that this administration has made her a very public face of its unpopular detention and deportation regime. When you're going through the airports, you're seeing these Orwellian videos of Kristi Noem saying, "We will."
If you'll allow, she is. If you'll allow, sorry to cut you off, she has made herself, and that's part of the problem that got her fired because, according to the reports and President Trump, she lied about this campaign, which put her in all the airports of her on horseback and in front of Mount Rushmore and horseback riding and boating through the plains. Go on.
Yeah, so it's absolutely when people identify members of this administration with the very unpopular policies, then it completely drags down Trump's popularity as a whole. And so we've already seen with the ICE deployments in Minneapolis, the leadership change there, bringing in Tom Homan. So the level of damage control that the Trump administration is having to do to correct for these very visible public relations errors that they're making with this horrendous policy, it's again, Kash Patel, after impugning Democrats for being wasteful with private jet spending, and then he's jetting off to the Olympics to take beer showers with the men's hockey team. People see the hypocrisy. People see that it is the pot calling the kettle black. And again, so much of what Republicans do with their public relations is projection. It is a game of projection, of casting their corruption on their political opponent. But it absolutely is an indicator that what Donald Trump's administration is doing is wholly unpopular with the American people. And if they're going to try to save themselves, then we're going to expect to see more and more leadership changes before November. But I don't think that this is something that the Republicans can simply dig themselves out of, because the economy, on top of the negative press with the authoritarian tactics of this government, the economy is not getting any better for working people. Healthcare is getting more unaffordable. We've gone the longest period in U.S. history since the minimum wage was established that the minimum wage has not been raised. And corporate money in politics, we're seeing the flood of spending with AI and other corporate interests in our elections. We just saw that on Tuesday. So the Trump administration has a hole to climb out of. And I don't think it's simply going to be enough to have the rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic with leadership changes like getting rid of Kristi Noem.
Yeah, look, the advice would be to just keep doing what you're doing, right? That's what most of you just keep doing what you're doing. But sadly, by doing what he's doing, I think people have lost their lives. Look at what happened in Minnesota and California with Keith Porter, Alex Preddy, and Renee Good. Thank you for that. Illustration, Kash Patel taking beer showers with the hockey team. Okay, that's something I did not need. So I wonder if you agree with that, Psycat, because again, and I hate to keep harping on this, but November is going to be extremely important. We are concerned now whether we're going to have a free and fair election, whether Donald Trump is going to try to use some sort of emergency power so that he can take over the elections come November. Look at what he's doing in Cuba. Look at what he wants to do with Greenland. Look at what he mentioned himself. He said we should nationalize the election. Republicans should take over the election. Now, That's not constitutionally sound, but this administration will try anything.
Yeah, I think the best potential defense against much being stolen in